Bisexual people of Reddit, what are the biggest differences between having a relationship with a man and with a woman? As a bisexual man, it's awesome to be little spoon and actually fit. I know that's probably not what you're looking for, but it's the first thing that came to mind. In my experience, relationships with men move a lot slower than relationships with women. In a relationship with a man, we talk for several weeks, then we date for a month before we even discuss defining the relationship. With women, you go on 2 dates, and then she has a drawer at your place. I'm a bi woman, and to be honest, the biggest difference for me is other people's perception of my relationship. When I date men, I don't get the same 21 questions from strangers and family members as to why I've made the choice to date that person. Also, once when I was dating a woman, my step-grandma asked me not to hold her hand or kiss her at Thanksgiving dinner so that it wouldn't confuse the children. They've never asked me to withhold public affection from male partners. I think I've dated more men than women long-term because it was the path of least resistance. Bisexual women here, women actually were usually hornier, and easier to talk about sex with. But could also be very emotionally demanding. Men are hot in a rough kind of way, and are kinda easier to make them happy. Currently dating a kind of girly guy. Gender roles completely out the window, which makes me very happy. I could share clothes with my girlfriend, now I just steal my male fiancé's clothes. As a man, men who've only dated women before are really easy to impress. I bought my ex dinner a few times and he just about lost his mind because no one had done that for him before. I've heard lesbians say the same thing about women, so I think it's more of a societal expectation thing than anything else. From my experience at least, WLW relationships tend to move faster. I can't explain it, like when I was with my ex, we were so ride or die since day one, saying I love you after less than a month together, very intense overall. Also, unfortunately, sometimes you get to realize how much bias and prejudice your friends and family might secretly hold. With men, I never had something like that. There were a lot more downtime, I guess. Also, no fear about having to go out while holding hands, or introducing to the family. Although, aside from a few things, I think it's very different overall because people are different, you know? Like my ex was very extroverted and my BF is very introverted, so the dynamic changes because of that too. My GF walks around naked more than my ex-BF. Most guys feel awkward having their parts dangling in the breeze, even if it's with someone who has seen them before. With most of the women I dated, gifts/acts of kindness were an everyday thing. Like, I'd make an extra stop for something they liked and it wouldn't be a big deal to them. Every single guy I have dated has lost their minds over the little things. When my husband and I first started dating, I stopped and got him a slushie while I got gas, not even an extra stop. I just set it in front of him at his apartment and you'd have thought it was the Holy Grail. You know the U-Haul lesbian thing? Totally true. I get so close so fast with other women, while for men it took me 3 years to get my now husband warmed up to the idea of marriage. With my ex-girlfriend before him, she was ready to settle down and get married after like 2 months. Otherwise, I'd say I actually do prefer relationships with women, but they can get more intense than relationships I've had with men. But that's not always a good thing. The biggest gender-based difference I've experienced is how other people look at/treat your relationship. If I'm with a guy, I can hold hands with him and people will assume he's my boyfriend. If I'm with a woman, I can hold hands with her and people will assume she's my sister. Bonus points for a guy asking if he can join in whenever you introduce a woman as your girlfriend. With a hetero relationship, there are a lot of gender-based assumptions. The dude drives and kills the bugs. The woman remembers that they're out of milk and arranges social things. It's not always true, but even then it feels like you're breaking the norm and different. With gays there is much less expectations. Chores tend to be distributed evenly. Who kills the bugs is sometimes both or neither. I found men are more direct but women show more non-sexual affection. What level bi am I if I want both? I'm a small human, and when I date women they're mostly my size, but men are usually at least 6 taller and have 50 pounds on me. There are a lot of physical differences with cuddling and sex with partners of different sizes. I love that men can pick me up when I want them to, and that I get to feel tiny and safe with men I trust. With women, it's more equal, so we switch back and forth between being the cuddler and the cuddly. Also with women, we usually take turns, getting attention and orgasming during sex, whereas with men it's more likely to be just one effort. Neither men nor women can get me off though, that I have to do myself. I don't know, I've been by myself my entire life. Don't worry, you're just on standby. Being a bottom with men and wanting women to top you are two very different things. I've dated more women than men, but both of the guys were way easier and more direct than any of the women were. Sex with a guy is easier to get started. Literally you can be playing video games on the couch and suddenly you're both horny and going for it. Women need more prep time. Generally, it's almost never 0 to 100 in a flash. It's slower to get started and longer to reach the finish, but in my opinion it is more satisfying when you both get there. Culturally it is easier to date women as it isn't immediately seen as taboo by most people. Almost nobody will bat an eye if you kiss as hetero in public, but you'll get a look or two if you're the same gender. These have been my experiences and in no way do I think it is universal, just the folks that have been nice enough to date me. The women I dated were generally harder to get to understand. They often said things but meant something different. The man I'm dating now just won't say things at all. I guess with both you never know what they're saying. Dating is fun. I can't borrow my boyfriend's clothes and shoes as easily, lol. As a guy I found I get more excited for Christmas when I date guys rather than girls because it's a mutual want and desire. You get to share most things, clothes, and video games. Women are sweeter and love little gestures more than guys. Like when I do the dishes or make supper or clean the house, they get super appreciative. Guys just brush it off or don't notice those kind of efforts. As a woman I've found that most men who find out I'm bi assume I'm constantly down for a three-way and most women assume I'm just straight and experimenting with them for a while. My ex-BF got pissy when I pointed out someone was attractive. My ex-GF would wake me up to show me the hot people in her porn, lol. In general, there's good and bad in both sexes. Many are shocked to know that abuse and toxicity can come from both sexes, but both can also give loving and fulfilling relationships too. For me it would be that women can be a little bit more impulsive emotionally and more adventurous. Women also, hint, a lot more than men. Women are also a bit more cuddly. Boobs are commonly used as pillows. Men are more predictable. They hint far less and are more likely to just tell you exactly like it is. When they are upset or angry, they definitely voice it most of the time. Can be a little more difficult to get out of their shell. For some reason some men don't like their ass being smacked or groped by the opposite sex. As a man, I never thought twice about holding my girlfriend's hand in public. But deciding to hold my boyfriend's hand was nerve-wracking at times. As a bi girl, the biggest difference is women are usually more emotionally invested but dramatic. Guys are usually laid back and fun but not as involved. I'm legitimately spending 90% of my time trying to work out the gender of each person commenting on this thread. It's incredibly hard without context. I'm a bi dude. Men more straightforward, less drama, less head games. Can be really nice, but also not as exciting. Women less straightforward, more drama, but much bigger emotional payoff when things so work out. Painting with an extremely broad brush here, after having dated several people of both genders. I've had drama guys and straightforward girls as well. Some bi people think that being with your own gender tends to be more enjoyable sexually, because they know what to do already, but I've found that being with the opposite gender is just as enjoyable, with communication and a modicum of practice. I ended up marrying a woman. Men have scratchy faces. I'd love to write something pithy and sexy, but really? Distribution of chores. I'm messy and disabled, but I have always ended up doing the overwhelming majority of household work and cooking in MF relationships. Even with guys who think they're enlightened. With FF, the assumption hasn't been there for me, so we've had discussions about divvying up chores. I think the experience is going to be much different for a bi dude as opposed to a bi chick. Never had a girl break up with me for not being heterosexual enough, but have had multiple dudes break up with me for not being gay enough. There are more differences between people of the same gender than between genders in my experience. I've had relationships with men, women, and people somewhere in between, and I think there aren't huge differences between men and women like most assume. That being said, the majority of people I've dated have been queer in some way, so if that changes things. With a woman I'm so much more dominant, like there's no trace of my bisexuality at all, in mental, physical and sexual situations. I tend to hide my sexuality from women, even though most don't care or even find it more attractive when a man is comfortable with himself. I'm also pretty masculine generally, behavior and looks-wise. So it just goes over their heads, but with men I'm submissive in all situations like I mentioned. I'm the complete opposite between both and I honestly love it. I can experience both sides of myself. Doesn't matter the gender, they're not into me back. To me, girls always tend to just be softer and smell nicer. I tend to be able to insult guys and joke around with guys more than I can with girls.